All right, we're going to tackle both ears and hair today. Let's talk ears. It is important that you know some of these parts of the ear. Let's start with the helix. Some of you know that word helix. If you've ever studied, say, a DNA model, you know it's a double helix. It's that spinning corkscrew kind of shape. And you can see that here, that it's spinning from the inside of the ear toward the outer part. And that's the part they call the helix. If you break that down, it's really just a cylinder. Well, it's a cylinder kind of like one of those pool noodles that's been bent. So if you know how to shade a cylinder, generally lighter on top and darker near the bottom, you'll be in good shape. And that's a big part of the ear, what I call the question mark. You can see this question mark with a little letter Y inside. That's a great way to think about your ear. Here we've got the helix, which is this big question mark. And then we have the antihelix, which is the Y. It's sort of not the helix, it's the part inside. So there's a couple other little parts. You know the ear lobe, well, lobule. That's this part down here, which might be attached or might be detached. This I always think of like a sphere, but that's been smushed. So if you had a little ball you made out of Play-Doh and then you just smushed it, that's how you would shade that. So it's a lot like shading a sphere, just a flat disc. There's a couple other parts. You have this part called the tragus. When you're closing your ears, you're like, I don't want to hear you. You're actually pushing on your tragus, so might mess with someone's head next time you do that. Go, keep it up, I'll push on my traguses. They'll be like, what the heck? Then there's this antitragus, which is kind of opposite that, and that comes out at the bottom of the Y. You have your ear notch, you know, where you get buildup of dirt and hair and stuff. Anyway, we're going to draw an ear. I'm going to try to draw one like this just so you can see some techniques for drawing the ear. Although this ear is in profile, we're looking at it from the side. And I don't know what good that's going to do you, because you're probably going to draw one more like this, where you're looking at it from the front. Although some of you don't have to draw ears, rather, because your hair covers up your ears. Or maybe you wear something over your ears. Or you want to have your hoodie up or something. So I'm not going to spend too much time on ears. We'll draw one together. And I'm going to ask you to draw one more. Probably one like this, you know, that you're going to see from the front. You're not going to see one from the back, but if you really get into drawing portraits, eventually you'll learn, you know, how to draw one from the back as well. So anyway, let's draw one. Let's draw one kind of like this. Let's start with this big question mark. Although it's not exactly a question mark. We're trying to make this basic shape. So it's just a big sort of half circle, but once you get past that, you bring it in a little bit like that question mark. But once you get to right about there, when you're about to make the dot for your question mark, you remember you need to make an earlobe. And yours will probably look a little different, as mine does here. I made my earlobe a little thinner. Maybe there's one like that. That's okay. But what I'm trying to show you is sort of a step-by-step for how you could always remember to draw an ear. Do the question mark, make the earlobe, and then we're going to make another line that echoes that one and goes all the way down till we get about 2/3 the way down, and then we just use a tapering line to let it fade out. So in other words, this is a little formula for drawing an ear. And now we're going to make this little Y inside. So I'm going to make this little scooped out part first. And I want to do this lightly. It's really not a line as much as it is sort of a change in value. Drawing ears are a lot like drawing fabric. You know, there's just things that roll and look like cylinders and cones. All right, let's continue to make this Y. Y. Because we have to. Let's go over this way, and most everyone has these basic shapes. Your Y might look a little different. You may have a attached or detached earlobe. Your ears may stick out further or not, but we kind of all, oddly enough, have these same basic shapes or forms in here. Let's make the rest of this Y so it looks kind of like a solid block, kind of a Y. If you want, you can bring this this helix in a little bit more. And this is the antitragus, so we need a tragus up here, that part we push on. That comes in here. And after you make that little thing, this kind of just goes right into that. So if you really want to, get good at drawing ears, just keep doing that over and over again. Just remember the formula. Make that line, then make this line, then make the Y. And eventually it'll just become, real easy for you. Bring that in, make the tragus. And, before long you just kind of have it. Or then you can try one backward. Okay, make the backward question mark, or make the earlobe. I follow that one around again. And pretty soon you'll have it. Now, shading, this is a little strange. We want to sort of eliminate all of these lines so that we just have forms that are changing in value. Let's start with this helix here and shade it. I'm going to put my pencil on its side and just put some shading in here. I'm purposefully trying to avoid shading near the top. Generally the tops of your ears, if they're exposed, are going to catch the light, the top surface. So I'll just put a little shading on the side here. I'm trying to leave it lighter at the top. As it comes into the ear, we want to push things back. You hear me say that over and over again. To make things look like they're further back, make them darker. Let's push this little part up in the Y back a little bit and give it some value. We're pushing that back, letting the lighter part come forward. Let's shade around this Y shape and push it back. And we really want to try to eliminate this line, so go right over that line. And again, I hope you are bringing your wood pencil to school. It'll be much easier than doing this with a pencil point. We'll push this back a bit. Trying to eliminate those lines. And this sort of just fades out into here. In this other area you can just make dark too. For the ear lobe down here, I am going to, like when we did the nose, leave a little bit of reflected highlight near the bottom. Oftentimes there's some kind of light bouncing off your shoulder, your collar, your cheek or something, and it just catches a little light. So I am going to shade this kind of like a sphere, but I'm leaving a little bit of light down at the bottom, not shading all the way down to the line. So that's sort of step one. We've got some values in place. At this point it's just about detailing and adding some more little fine details. Like for example, the top of this, this helix underneath is going to cast a shadow. So I want to come in here and just add a little bit of a shadow right in here. That'll push this back a little bit further. I don't think this should be such a bright white Y, so I'm going to give that a little bit of tone. Maybe I'll make this a bit darker in here. And that's pretty much it. Now I still have an outline for my ear, and whenever you have an outline it makes it look kind of fake, but just understand that really there's going to be a change in value. So you're going to want to shade around here and kind of eliminate that line. Let the ear be lighter on this edge so that it pops forward off of the face. But there's probably going to be some skin tone or hair or something. Maybe there's hair over here that kind of goes right onto the ear, over the ear. Or maybe it tucks behind the ear. But we really want to eliminate that line. There is no line. There's no outline to things. And once you do that kind of stuff and you've got some hair there or something, it's just going to really push it back and let the ear pop off the page. So, you could do a little bit of blending and make it a little smoother. Pop up a few highlights that you might see. But for the most part, we've got something that looks like it has some depth. It looks kind of three-dimensional. That's what we're after. But just like with the nose and with the mouth, try to avoid outlines. I really can't stress that enough. So there's an ear. You've got one. I'd like you just to try one more. You don't have to do it in color if you don't want to. I would really, ask you to draw one that's you're seeing from the front. That's slightly different. It's the same thing. You'll have to remember those parts, but that question mark doesn't help you as much. Some people, the Y or the antihelix will come out more or less. Take a look at your ear. If you're really into it, do two. Do the left and right. But I would like to move on to hair. As I mentioned on Friday a week ago, I can't possibly teach you everyone's hairstyle in here. And when it gets to color, light versus dark, then it really adds a whole nother dimension of difficulty. But let's try to tackle some hairstyles. I don't have blue hair, so I'm lucky. I just have to make my head look shiny. All right. Let's start with some really short hair. You might have some facial hair. Maybe you're a fella. And you're just making little things like this. And really what I'm going to show you in these next few drawings are textures. You might be, let's make one even finer, you might be doing this. As you look at your facial hair, or maybe how your hair is cut on the side, it might be really, really short. As you can see, hair is going to take you a bit more time. It's texture. Maybe your hair is slightly longer, and you've got hair like this. So each hairstyle, each type of hair is going to require a different technique, and perhaps a different sort of pencil stroke, whether it's a tap, or a little jab, or little fine tapering lines like these. This might be the side of your hair, then your ear comes in here. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Come on, focus. There we go. Maybe your hair is slightly longer. The longer the hair, the longer the stroke. So it really is just, you have to look at your hair and go, well, how long is it? Is it, what length? And this is for some types of hair, sort of a straight hair. We'll look at some different types. Here's a trick if you have straight hair that you will commonly use. I want you to try this. I'm going to make lines that are pretty heavy down here, and then I'm lifting up my pencil and just making these tapering lines on the other end. So go ahead and try that. Basically, I'm just pressing hard and lifting my pencil up, so I've got these tapering lines. Now you can come back the other way. You can press hard up here and then lighten your pressure going this way. Or if you want, you can just turn it upside down and go the other way. But what I'm doing is just leaving a little bit of sheen in between. And it kind of looks like light is catching the hair, if that makes sense. It's like, if you had shiny, darker hair and some light is reflecting on that hair, that's a great way to have those tapering lines come together and leave some white in between. And I would ask you to see if you can take it a step further. You can continue up top and now go the other way, or continue this way. Now we need to be careful. We want to avoid having some weird focal point in between. So I'm going to try to blend these together so that it looks kind of seamless. So I'm trying to chase away any evidence that there's a line in between these two. There we go. And then you could do it again. Now it looks like we've got a whole grouping of hair. So this is for the straight hair folks. This is a technique you may see or may try. So that would be like one, not strand, but one grouping of hair. If we look at the head, it's kind of like an upside down egg shape. Typically when light is shining down on you, whether it's the sunlight or artificial light inside, it's these areas right in here that are going to catch light, but on the sides it's a bit darker. I think we have yeah, here we go. Yeah, we have a drawing of this. So here's the idea. Light is going to, those little reflections or little highlights I'm talking about are going to be generally seen up in this area, but not on the sides. The sides are generally a little bit darker. There's another example. Light's catching up here. The sides are darker. Here's another look at it using those tapering lines. Let's try a different type of hairstyle. Maybe yours is more like this. Here's a different technique. Lay your pencil down real flat. Let's just let's do this on someone's head here. This is just a totally different texture. Let's just do a larger version of it though. Maybe you have more of an afro, and you'll be using a totally different texture. Maybe you've got dreads. You could do something like this, where you're making spirals that come down like this, using the side of your pencil. Each hairstyle sort of demands a different technique, a different texture. We can make these look a little bit more 3D by adding some more value to one side or another. To make them look more cylindrical. Another thing I want to talk to you about with hair is, these aren't the best examples, but generally hair is darker right where it frames the face. So right around the face, in this area, it's darker. So that's something to consider. Some of you that have really curly hair, you're going to have to do the most work. If you've got curly hair, you're going to be doing lots of this kind of stuff. You're going to make one grouping of hair that goes this way, and then another one maybe that comes over this way. And you're just going to have to keep making lots of little curly groupings of hair, and it just takes time. And it's sort of another technique or another texture. So I always feel for the folks that have curly hair. It just really takes a long time. But you can also push things back further. Remember that darks go back. So you can make some areas look like they're up front and other areas are further back by adding in some well-placed darks. And you can get a lot more depth and dimension. What else can we do for you? Let's just try one more thing. That's some overlapping. Here's something you need to talk about, darks going back. Maybe you have another grouping of hair that comes out over here. If you want to make it look like this is in front and this is behind, well, then you make this darker here. And then this one will push back further. And now we've made this grouping look like it's in front. Maybe we have one that's coming out from behind here. If we make it darker, it will push back. If we make it lighter, it will come to the front. So always remember that when you're messing with hair. You want things to pop forward, make them lighter. You want things to push back, make them darker. So we're trying to get some dimension so your hair does not look flat. That's about as far as I'm going to take it today. Really, when it gets to hair, folks, if you have a difficult hairstyle or you're not sure how to tackle it, I will help you individually. It's probably the last thing you're going to do because you're going to kind of map out your face first and do the eyes, nose, mouth, and all that. And then we're going to be sporadically starting to work on hair, so I'll be able to go around and help you. Well, what I would ask you to do is draw 3 hairstyles. That'll give us our total of 5. 2 ears, 3 hairstyles. And it can be this simple. You don't have to draw a whole head of hair. But show me a good effort that you spent a good 3, 4, 5 minutes. And you don't have to do it in color, but that you tried maybe some different hairstyles. Probably try your own, see if you can capture it. And I'm going to look for 2 ears, and that will give you your full 50 points for today. And we'll be collecting all of these on Monday, but just know that you have Monday as well. Monday, I'm going to talk about face proportioning, putting all of these things together, but you'll have the majority of the class to finish anything undone, your eyes, noses, mouths, ears, and hair. Don't forget you also have sketch 5 due, because I just love to torture you with work. So that's what's going on today. Questions? Awesome. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend.